In the 2005 remake of the movie Yours, Mine, and Ours, the story is about a widow and a widower who reunite after their 30-year high school reunion. Sparks fly, they quickly decide to get married, and just like that, they are moving in together, kids and all. Well, the widower, an officer in the Coast Guard, has 8 kids of his own, and the widow, an artist and designer, has 10 kids. And so now there are 18 kids all trying to live under one roof. And as you can imagine, the dad, a military officer, has a highly ordered, regimented approach to life. He's convinced that a military style approach to life is what's needed for these people, this family, to survive. And the mom, an artist, is just the opposite. She's so much more relaxed and has a bit of a free-for-all approach. And the movie is a story about 20 people learning to live as a single household. First, the kids of each parent rebel against the parenting of the other parent. But then all of the kids together, they join forces and they try to sabotage the arrangement as one. And when they finally succeed, they end up feeling guilty, and they work together to bring the two parents back together and to restore the household. In a profound sense, this is a summary of the gospel. The Jews and Gentiles lived at odds with each other for centuries, but Jesus came to bring them together into one family. But rather than receive the gift of this new family, they just rebel against Jesus, joining forces for the very first time just to murder him. And it's only when he's been raised from the dead that both Jew and Gentile see what they've done. They recognize their guilt and they repent. And through the ministry of Paul, Jew and Gentile begin to really live together as one family. This is the heart of Paul's work throughout the New Testament, taking diverse groups of people and helping them live as one family, one household in Christ. The reason I love the movie Yours, Mine, and Ours is that this new household being formed is 20 people. And when you think about bringing 20 people together as one household under one roof, it's a little overwhelming when you think about how you might structure life for the sake of everyone. See, when we typically think of family, we might think of 4 to 6 people, and that strikes us as manageable. But in the ancient world, a household could quickly be closer to 8 to 10 people. The household would often include grandparents, potentially even a great-grandparent. There would often be a hired servant or even a debt slave. And it was common for households to have as many children as possible. So you can see how the numbers would start to add up, especially the wealthier you got. When you read the book of Acts, you discover that entire households begin to follow Jesus together, sometimes getting baptized as one. This could be 8 people or much higher. The earliest churches then were often just several households that lived within walking distance of each other. If you can imagine several of these households coming together to form a sort of super household where you might have 25 to 30 people. Remembering that buildings weren't built specifically for churches to gather in yet, not for a few hundred years. And so a single congregation was limited, a single household was limited to the number of people who could gather in a single home. But still, right? How do you help 25 to 30 people live together as a family? It's also important to point out that not everyone experienced a normal household. You had divorced people in the ancient world. You had widows who had lost their husbands. There were widows that never had any children. And there were children who had lost their parents. And there were households without servants. They came in all shapes and sizes. So while there was a somewhat normal standard shape for the ancient family, they could vary wildly household to household. And so the church very much faced a yours, mine, and ours situation, multiple households coming together to form one. Each of these households led by people with different personalities, each household with its own structure and its own habits and its own personality. It's to congregations like this, households coming together as a single household in Jesus, to live as one larger family, that Paul is writing. In 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 14, we hear him say, I hope to come to you soon, but I am writing these things to you so that, if I delay, you may know how one ought to behave in the household of God, which is the church of the living God, a pillar and buttress of truth. Paul understands the difficult task in front of the church. And so he would much rather be there in person to help create order and structure, but he can't. And so he'll settle for writing, which should help us realize that the stuff he's chosen to include probably isn't everything, but it must be the really important stuff for this church at this time. And so let's jump into it, and let's listen and ask the question, how do Paul's instructions to first century Ephesians apply to us in our day and our time as we live together as the household of God? I think there are a few broad categories that Paul is working with that might connect with us. First, what is it that binds us or holds us together? Second, what's our shared goal or purpose here? Third, how do we organize ourselves? Like, who does what and who has what roles and responsibilities? Let's just jump into the first question with an easy answer. Should be easy. We focused on this last week. We are part of God's household because of Jesus. We are a pillar and buttress of the truth, which means the family, this family only exists because of Jesus. We exist in Jesus, we exist to make much of Jesus, and we exist so that the world might see Jesus and know him. Jesus is the only reason we have any connection and desire to be family together. And so Jesus is the boundary line for us of who's in and who's out. Now, we heard it last week. There are all people, and there is the household of God. And we're told in this letter that Christ died for all people. But not all people have joined the household of God yet. The way God's household lives together stands as an invitation for all people to come and find life in God's family. And so Paul tells us that we have a different responsibility to those within the household of God than we do to those outside of it. And we see in 1 Timothy the implications of this. From its earliest days, the church throughout the Roman Empire had a reputation for caring generously for widows. And so you can imagine in a world where widows are often destitute, left to fend for themselves, forgotten by the wealthy and the powerful, widows were drawn powerfully to God's family. They were drawn to this community that cared for the least of these. The church was profoundly attractive to those in need. But early on, the church discovered that many widows wanted to be supported by the church, but they didn't want Jesus. They didn't want to submit their lives to Jesus. They didn't want to take on his character. They didn't want to become servants with Jesus. They merely wanted to be served and sustained. But the church exists for Jesus, and in Jesus, for his glory alone. We are a pillar and buttress to the truth, which is who is Jesus. So what's the household of God to do? There are only so many resources within God's family, especially when the church already tended to draw a lot of poorer people to it. If you can imagine, the rich and the well-off didn't really love Jesus' teachings about money. And so here's what God's household did in practice. It reserved its full economic support, the kind that a person could live on, only for those who followed Jesus with their lives, for those who were committed to living as part of God's family in a mutual, interdependent sort of way. In fact, Paul offers a specific description of the kind of life that would demonstrate a widow's love for Jesus. When you're trying to decide whether a widow should be sustained, she should have a reputation for good works. She shows hospitality. She washes the feet of the saints. She has cared for the afflicted. She has devoted herself to every good work. Notice the repetition of the word good on either side. A follower of Jesus does good work. And for the widows in the church, this included welcoming strangers, serving brothers and sisters, and caring for the afflicted. Notice her care for the afflicted. This catch-all category phrase is the way you would summarize the widows and orphans that God expects his people to care for all throughout Scripture. What about those widows outside the family? Those who didn't want Jesus. They weren't forgotten. They weren't neglected. They were cared for by the women in God's household. The idea is simple. Do to others as you would want them to do to you. Like Jesus said, as a follower of Jesus, spend your life caring for widows. And when you find yourself a widow, God's family will support you. Widows outside the family aren't ignored or forgotten. They experience generous grace from God's family. But they also aren't sustained with the same level of support as a member of the family, as one who is committed to being an active and interdependent part of the family. What is it that binds us together? Who is it that gives us our unity and our identity and mission as a family? Jesus. We exist for him. He is the one who defines the family. Which brings us to the second question. What is our shared goal or purpose or mission in this family? In this letter, Paul repeatedly refers to it as God-likeness, godliness. Paul expects followers of Jesus to become like Jesus in their words, in their actions, and in their character. Because when God's household is made up of Christ-like members, that the household offers the world a visible image of who God is and what God is like. Going back to the widows again, I love that the oldest and most mature women in the church are explicitly giving the job of showing off what God is like. You want to know who God is and what God is like? Look at the widows. Look at these older, mature women in our church. That's what Paul seems to be saying. See, when they are expected to show hospitality, this means they are expected to imitate God. Now I know that the word hospitality has come to mean a variety of things, something else in our context, like something like being a good host for guests. But the word in Greek literally means love for strangers. When you make space for the outsider, when you welcome the foreigner among you, when you pray for your enemy, when you provide a place at your table for someone outside of the family, all of these actions imitate God, who created space for us in his world and in his life. Our God is a hospitable God as he loves the stranger, the other. There's something unsettling about Paul's statement that he wants us to know how to behave in God's household. That word behave, right? It feels a little bit like a program for behavior modification, or as Dallas Willard calls it, a gospel of sin management. But Paul isn't trying to just tweak our lives, to manage our sin, to get it under control, to simply clean up our behavior. Paul is trying to reorient us around a completely way of being human, a completely different way of living together. He is calling us to lives that imitate God in our words, our actions, and our character. And this goes for every single member of the family. No one is excluded, right? If you are a daughter of God, God wants to make you holy. If you are a son of God, God wants to make you holy. To Timothy, a younger man among the Ephesians, Paul tells him, be an example in your speech and conduct, in your love and your faith and your purity. Timothy is to live like Christ, and others are to imitate his example. And I love this image that a friend of mine gave me recently. He talked about the way that you might polish a precious stone. Like, say you had the chance to mine it yourself. And now you have this jagged rock. It's bumpy with all sorts of imperfections. It's cool, but it's not display worthy. And you want to give the rock a smooth, polished finish. And so you can show it off. You could spend months with a single tool chipping away or sanding or polishing that stone. Just you and the stone. And you would eventually have something that looks special. Or you can get a rock tumbler. You put a dozen rocks in together, add a little water, and something that creates friction like sand, and within a day, maybe days, you would have a dozen beautiful rocks. This is one of the central reasons God has given us a church, a family to live with, to participate in. See, alone, we might eventually begin to take form. But together, bumping up against each other, hurting each other's feelings, annoying each other, just being different from one another, right? Having to apologize and make things right, learning to honor others as better than ourselves, serving each other. Like, we get bumped and we get broken together. And in the process, we all begin to shine as one, like Jesus. And going to church one day a week, going to a small group isn't enough to do this. Like, we have to be in the tumbler together. We need to live as part of a household that is all up in each other's space and lives. 10 people, 15 people, no more than 25, all bumping up against each other consistently. Constantly. And this is important. We need the full household. Grandparents, parents, children, servants, all of the people included, not just parts of it. See, the young dads, we can't just get together all the time because we have the most in common and we sort of get each other. And the widows, they can't spend all of their time together either because they're in the same stage in life. And teenagers can't hang out only with other teenagers. In fact, this is exactly the issue that Paul addresses in 1 Timothy when he tells the young widows that they need to get married and have kids. See, the young widows, they like each other and they enjoy hanging out in each other's homes. But they have stopped growing. And because they have stopped growing, they have opened their lives to the danger of being tempted by the devil to walk away from faith altogether. See, like groups where everyone's in the same place rarely challenge each other or require any growth from us. Instead, the young widows have become lazy, Paul says. They no longer are challenging each other and helping each other to live like God and for God. Instead, they're causing all sorts of trouble in the household. They gossip, they spread false teaching. This false teaching is causing other people to ruin their faith. And they just encourage each other to simply stay as they are, to settle. These young widows are wasting their lives hanging out with each other. They have been called to more. They have been saved for more. And now Paul wants them to be saved from wasting their lives, from wasting what Christ has done for them. If you like the church because you like the people, you might be doing it wrong. Now, that's not to say that you can't like the people, right? But it's no guarantee. God designed his family to help us become like Christ, not to give us just one more group of people that we like to spend time with. We can find that anywhere. Who is committed to us? Who can we commit to that will help us become more and more like Jesus for the sake and the glory of God? Finally, I want to say something quickly about Paul's organization of the household. Right? How do we organize our lives together? Who does what and who has what roles and responsibilities? It's critical that all of these questions start with Jesus and the goal of the church. The goal being God likeness, Christ likeness. See, because the moment we ask a question like, who should be in charge of this thing? If we don't start with Jesus and God likeness, we start to get some really strange answers. If church is just a weekly event that is spiritually uplifting, that helps me feel close to God, well, then the speakers should be people who are gifted at moving us, and they should be good at inspiring. But if Jesus is the point, then feeling close to Jesus isn't the goal. Walking with Jesus is the goal. And these aren't the same thing. Living lives of loving and trusting obedience. That is the goal. Which means our teachers aren't there to entertain us, but to model for us what we were made to be and do. Our teachers are there to guide us in living this out. And this all brings us to chapter 3. Paul lists qualifications for leaders in the household. How we select our leaders is a centrally important question. We're getting ready for our church board elections here within the next month or so. Through the years, I've often heard people read this passage and talk about the need for leaders to live up to these standards, as though they're like aspirational, right? Something that we should all strive for, but maybe isn't quite possible. And when we believe this, we begin to make compromises throughout. I remember being in a conversation about potential board members a long time ago, and one person was named as a potential nominee. Immediately, someone else said, they're new to faith. I I don't think it would be appropriate yet, especially in light of Paul's encouragement in 1 Timothy. So the person who nominated this young guy said, but we need their passion and their excitement. It was obvious they really wanted this person to serve. So the second person came back. We have their passion and their excitement. Whether they're on the board or not, they're a part of the church. What we need is character and wisdom leading us. We need to see if they can persevere over time, to see if they stick with Jesus even after that passion and that excitement changes, after they've experienced some struggles and hardship. We don't even know how they would respond in a disagreement. We've never seen them in a disagreement. How can we trust him to lead us? To which the first person responded, yeah, but they can learn all the character stuff. You can't learn passion and excitement. Second person, disappointed, finished by saying, no, I'm sorry. There's just no evidence that people develop character after being given power. Like, if they don't have character first, the power is just going to corrupt them. I want our leaders to have passion for Christ and to be excited about the gospel, but passion and excitement ebb and flow. Character endures. I understand your desire, but I will oppose this nomination. This is what it looks like to organize ourselves around Jesus and to prioritize Christ's likeness as the goal for God's family. A group rarely grows beyond the character of its leaders. If it selects spiritually immature leaders, the family will fail to grow. How we organize our lives and our life together says everything about what is important to us. The family structure, the structure of God's household, should help us order our lives around God, who he is, what he is like, and what he is up to. Right? Our family structure should help us to worship him. Our family structure should help us to learn the truth about him. Our family structure should help us become like him. And our family structure should help us show and tell the world what God is like. Make your way through 1 Timothy, and this is exactly what Paul offers the family of God. A family centered around Jesus, instructed in worship and education, in imitation and character. God's household in Ephesus was well ordered, thanks to Paul. Could the people under Timothy's care submit to this way of life? The same questions exist for us. What does God's household look like when it's well ordered in the 21st century? This is a huge question for us to consider and wrestle with. And then, are we willing to submit our lives to God through this family? Do we believe that God's household is a gift of grace for us, a means of grace, God's central way of transforming us and making us like him so that he might shine brightly in the world? Grace and peace, my brothers and sisters. Amen.